My brother has hated me for most of my life. He hated me so much that he cut me out of the family when I married his ex-girlfriend. My parents sided with him and said I embarrassed them. I spent years living away from everyone, thinking the distance would keep the peace. I never imagined the person who once called me his little sister would take that hatred and turn it into something far darker. The day I found out he put our mother's house in his name, she was deep in dementia. She could not remember what year it was. She could not follow her own medication schedule. She could not understand even simple things without help. Yet somehow, her signature appeared on a legal deed, transferring the only home she had ever known to my brother. When I read that letter, I felt something inside me crack. I had been pushed out of the family for years, but this was different. This was not an argument. It was not a misunderstanding. It was a cruel act done to a woman who could not defend herself. A woman who still asked me if I was hungry every time I visited, because one part of her brain still remembered how to be a mother. I knew this was not a mistake. I knew this was Rowan using our mother the same way he always used people. He wanted the house. He wanted control. And because he hated me, he thought I would never have the courage to challenge him. He was wrong. This is the story of how I uncovered the truth, how a doctor proved my mother could not legally sign anything, and how a judge fined my brother $6,000 for elder fraud. It is the story of how I moved my mother into my home the same week he lost everything he tried to steal. If you are watching this, subscribe to the channel and comment. Before everything fell apart, I lived a quiet life in my early 40s. I worked, I kept to myself, and I tried not to think about my family too much. Years earlier, I married Lila, who used to date my older brother Rowan. It was not planned. Lila and I reconnected years after they broke up. We fell in love naturally, but my family never accepted it. My parents said I embarrassed them, and Rowan said I had betrayed him. He refused to talk to me from that day on. Even with all the distance and anger, I still checked on my mother, Helena. She was getting older and repeating the same stories. At first, we thought it was normal aging, but her memory began slipping faster than any of us expected. She forgot where she put her keys. Then she forgot if she ate breakfast. Then she started calling me by the nickname she used when I was 7 years old. That was when I knew something was deeply wrong. Rowan lived closer to her, but refused to give real updates. When I asked how she was doing, he said, "She's fine. Stop trying to act like the good daughter now." It hurt, but I kept coming back because she was still my mother, no matter what our past looked like. The house felt different every time I visited. Papers that used to stay neatly in the kitchen, drawer were missing. Bills were stacked in odd places. My mother kept telling me Rowan had brought her something to sign, but she could not explain what it was. She once said, "He told me it was something about the mailbox. I think I signed a birthday card. Did I forget your birthday again?" My heart broke hearing her try so hard to make sense of something she did not understand. She trusted Rowan because he was her son. She never believed he would trick her, but the confusion in her eyes told me she did not know what she had signed or why. I tried asking Rowan about the missing papers. He snapped at me saying, "You lost your right to question anything in this family." His face showed pure resentment, built up from years of anger he held on to like it was the only thing he had left. I left that day with a tight feeling in my chest. Something was wrong, and for the first time in years, I was terrified that Rowan had crossed a line he could not take back. If you are enjoying this story so far, make sure you subscribe to the channel and comment where you are watching from. The letter from the county recorder arrived on a Tuesday morning. I opened it without thinking, expecting it to be some routine update about property taxes. Instead, my hands started shaking as I read the first line. It said the ownership of my mother's house had been legally transferred to my brother, Rowan Vale. The transfer date was recent. Too recent. It matched the same week my mother could not remember whether she had eaten lunch or taken her medicine. She could not even remember that my father had passed away years earlier. She kept asking me when he was coming home. I stared at the letter in disbelief. My mother would never have signed away her home. She barely understood her own prescriptions at this point. She could not follow a simple conversation. She could not tell you what month it was. Yet someone claimed she had clearly signed a legal deed that required full understanding of her choices. I drove straight to her house. Rowan's car was already in the driveway. When he opened the door, he looked annoyed. He did not even greet me. I held the letter up and asked what he had done. He shrugged and said, "Mom wanted me to handle things. You lost your voice in this family 20 years ago. Do not pretend you care about the house now." I felt anger rise in my chest. I asked him when she supposedly signed this deed. He said, "A few months ago. She knew exactly what she was doing." His tone was cold and dismissive. He could not even look me in the eyes. I walked past him and went to my mother, who was sitting on the couch holding a blanket she kept folded for my late father. I sat beside her and asked gently, "Mom, do you remember signing anything with Rowan?" She looked confused and said, "He gave me a birthday card to sign, or maybe it was papers for the mailbox. I forget. Did I do something wrong?" Her voice trembled like a child afraid of being punished. My heart broke. She had no idea what she signed or why. She did not even understand the question. I knew she was not capable of making any legal decision. Anyone who spent 10 minutes with her could see she was lost in her own memories. I pulled out her medication log. The week of the signing, she had been experiencing severe confusion. She had forgotten entire conversations. She had misplaced her clothes and mixed up people's names. There was no way she could have understood a legal document. When I confronted Rowan again, he snapped, "She is my mother too. The house was always supposed to stay with me. You made your choice when you married Lila. Do not start pretending you are the family hero now." His bitterness filled the room like poison. I left before I said something I would regret. I sat in my car and felt a deep mix of rage and fear. This was not only about a house. This was about a vulnerable woman being taken advantage of because she trusted the wrong person. It was about a man who saw dementia as a chance to punish me for old wounds. It was about a family that had fallen apart so deeply that the lines between love and resentment had completely disappeared. I took my mother to see Dr. Naomi Pierce, her neurologist. During the evaluation, my mother could not remember the name of her own street. She could not understand the difference between a legal paper and a greeting card. When Dr. Pierce asked her why she signed the deed, my mother said, "I did not. I only signed a birthday card." After the examination, Dr. Pierce spoke with me privately. She said, "Your mother has no mental capacity to sign any binding document. If someone had her sign legal papers, they took advantage of her condition." Her voice was calm but firm. That was the moment the fear inside me turned into resolve. I knew I had to fight. I knew Rowan would deny everything. I knew he would attack me and twist every detail. But I also knew my mother needed someone to protect her. She had no one else willing to do it. If you want to hear what happened next, make sure you subscribe to the channel and comment where you are watching from. Your support helps me share more stories like this. I left Dr. Pierce's office with a folder of medical notes that confirmed what I already knew in my heart. My mother had not been capable of signing anything. Her dementia had reached a point where she struggled to recognize her own reflection in the mirror. If someone showed her a document with legal language, She would have smiled politely and signed it because she did not want to disappoint anyone. She had been raised to trust her children, not fear them. The idea that my brother took advantage of that trust made my stomach twist with anger. That night, I sat at my dining table with every document I had collected over the past year. Medical evaluations, confusion episodes, medication adjustments, notes from nurses, dates of her memory lapses. I highlighted everything that pointed to her inability to understand legal contracts. I worked until my eyes burned, determined not to miss a single detail. This was not only evidence, it was a record of my mother's slow and painful decline, a timeline of moments where she needed protection but never received it. The next morning, I called an attorney who specialized in elder exploitation. She listened carefully as I explained what happened. When I mentioned Rowan's insistence that our mother knew exactly what she was doing, she responded, "People who exploit the elderly often hide behind that excuse. If the medical records support your mother's condition, you have a strong case." Her confidence gave me a small sense of relief. For the first time in years, someone was taking my side without hesitation. Someone believed me. I filed the legal petition that same week. It was a long and exhausting process. There were forms, affidavits, and statements I needed to prepare. I had to collect past correspondence with Rowan, including every message where he dismissed her symptoms or refused to allow me into the care decisions. I submitted every piece of proof that showed he isolated her and took control of her documents without transparency. When Rowan was served notice, he called me for the first time in years. His voice was sharp with anger. He said, "You think you can undo this? You are not part of this family anymore. You threw that away when you married her." He did not even have the respect to say Lila's name. He used her like it was an insult. I stayed calm and answered, "This is not about you. This is about Mom." He shouted back, "Mom wanted me to have the house. You are only doing this because you want revenge for being pushed out." I ended the call. There was nothing left to say. Over the next days, I visited my mother often. She did not understand the legal battle, but she sensed the tension. One afternoon, she held my hand and asked, "Did I upset your brother again?" I told her gently that none of this was her fault. She nodded slowly, then asked, "Are we going somewhere special soon?" Her mind drifted between past and present, never settling in one place for long. I knew the court hearing would be overwhelming for her, so I tried to keep her calm. I brought her soft blankets she liked. I played her favorite music from the 70s. I reminded her of old memories that still made her smile. Even in moments when she forgot who I was for a few seconds, she still relaxed when she heard my voice. That was enough to keep me going. As the hearing date approached, Rowan grew more aggressive. He told other relatives that I was trying to steal the house for myself. Some believed him. One aunt called me and said, "Why are you bringing drama again? Rowan has always been the responsible one." It hurt, but I stayed focused. They had never truly known me. They only knew the version of me Rowan painted after I married Lila. The night before the hearing, I stood in my mother's quiet room and promised her, "I will not let anyone take advantage of you again." She looked up at me with soft, confused eyes and said, "I know you take care of me. You always did." The words hit me harder than any insult Rowan ever threw at me. For a moment, the weight of every fight, every distance, every painful memory felt worth carrying. My choice was clear. I was done being silent. I was done letting guilt or fear shape my decisions. I was finally standing up for the woman who raised me, even when the rest of the family turned their backs. If you want to hear how the courtroom moment changed everything, make sure you subscribe to the channel and comment where you are watching from. The morning of the hearing felt heavy. I helped my mother get dressed in a soft sweater she loved, the one with tiny embroidered flowers she used to wear to family dinners. She kept asking why we were going out, and every time I answered, she nodded politely and forgot the answer a moment later. I held her hand as we walked into the courthouse. She looked around the hallway and whispered, "Is this a doctor's office?" I told her it was a place where people listen to the truth. She smiled faintly, trusting me without understanding the weight of what was about to happen. Rowan was already there, standing confidently with his arms crossed. He did not look at my mother. He only stared at me with the same resentment he had carried for decades. When we took our seats, he leaned toward me and said quietly, "No matter what happens today, you are still nothing in this family." I ignored him. His words no longer controlled me. Once the hearing began, Rowan repeated the same story he had told everyone else. He said our mother wanted him to have the house. He said she trusted him. He said I was only fighting this because I was jealous and had been angry at the family for years. He even brought up my marriage to Lila, trying to paint me as the problem. The judge cut him off and reminded him that personal drama was not relevant to the case. Then Dr. Pierce took the stand. Her voice was steady and professional as she explained my mother's condition. She talked about the memory loss, the judgment impairment, the inability to understand complex information, and the confusion that had been documented for months. She stated clearly that my mother did not have the mental capacity to sign any legally binding document during the time Rowan claimed she agreed to transfer the house to him. The courtroom shifted. Even people who had doubted me were now staring at Rowan. The judge asked Rowan to provide proof that my mother understood the document. Rowan said, "She said she wanted me to handle things. She signed it. What more proof do you need?" The judge replied, "Understanding the purpose of a document and being physically able to sign it are two different things. Did she demonstrate comprehension of the deed?" Rowan hesitated. His confidence cracked for the first time. Then it was my turn. I explained the missing papers, the confusion episodes, and the day she thought she was signing a birthday card. I shared the log that showed her condition during the week of the alleged signing. I talked about her forgetting my father had passed away. I talked about how she struggled to remember her own street address during evaluations. Every detail matched the medical reports. As I spoke, my mother sat quietly beside me, holding the blanket she carried everywhere. She did not understand the testimony, but she could feel the tension. She leaned toward me and whispered, "I did not sign anything important. Why is he mad at me?" Her voice shook. The judge heard her and his expression hardened. He turned to Rowan and asked, "Did you secure a notary for this signing?" Rowan nodded quickly. The judge reviewed the notary's statement and found contradictions between the notary's report and Rowan's timeline. The inconsistencies were too large to ignore. When the judge delivered his ruling, the room fell silent. He stated clearly that Helena Vale lacked the mental capacity to sign the deed. He declared the transfer invalid and ordered the property returned to her name. He then fined Rowan $6,000 for elder fraud and for attempting to exploit a vulnerable adult. Rowan's face twisted with anger. He leaned toward me and said, "You ruined everything. This was supposed to be mine." I looked back calmly and answered, "It was never yours. It was Mom's." For the first time, he had no comeback. As we stood to leave, my mother tugged on my arm and whispered, "Are we going home now?" I nodded. This time, we truly were. If you are still with me, make sure you subscribe to the channel and comment where you are watching from. It means a lot to me and helps this channel grow. When we walked out of the courthouse, the weight of the entire year pressed against my chest. The wind felt colder than usual, and my mother shivered as she held onto my arm. She kept asking if the building behind us was a hospital and whether she had forgotten an appointment again. I told her we were done for the day and heading home. She relaxed instantly, even though she did not fully understand what had happened inside that courtroom. In a way, I was grateful for her confusion. She did not need to carry the pain that came with knowing her own son tried to take advantage of her. That burden belonged to me. Later that evening, I sat with my mother at her kitchen table. The table was worn from years of family dinners, birthday cakes, and holiday meals. It was the heart of the home she nearly lost. She kept folding and unfolding the corner of a napkin, a habit she developed whenever she felt anxious. I asked if she wanted tea, and she nodded. While the kettle warmed, she looked around the room and said, "It feels different in here. Did someone move things?" Her voice carried a soft confusion that used to break me, but now I understood it as part of the world she lived in. I told her I had cleaned a few things, even though I had not. It made her smile, and that was enough. Over the next few days, I realized my mother could no longer live alone. Small moments confirmed it. She forgot the name of her medication. She left the stove on after boiling water. She confused night and morning. Once, I found her sitting on the porch wearing her winter coat in warm weather because she thought we were waiting for my father to return from work. It scared me more than I expected. I knew she needed care, not just visits, and certainly not the kind of help Rowan claimed he was offering. That same week, I moved her into my home. It took hours to pack her belongings because she kept pausing to hold items she did not fully remember. She lifted a framed family photo and asked me why I looked so young. Then she asked if Rowan would stop by to help with the move. I told her he was busy. She accepted the answer without question, unaware of the deep history behind it. I set up a peaceful room for her in my house. Soft lighting, a blanket she loved, photos of me and her from years when her smile was confident and full of life. I placed a small radio near her bed and tuned it to the station that played her favorite songs from the 70s. When she stepped into the room, she gasped softly and said, "This is beautiful. Did you do this for me?" I nodded, and for a moment she looked at me with the same warm pride she used to show when I was a child. She hugged me lightly, and I held her a little longer than she expected. I needed that hug more than she knew. Over the next weeks, she slowly adjusted to her new routine. Some days she remembered where she was. Other days, she asked to go home. I explained that she was home now, and she accepted it with a quiet smile. She often sat by the window, watching birds in the yard. Sometimes she called me into the room just to tell me a bird landed on the fence. It was simple and innocent, and it reminded me of a time before resentment divided our family. Relatives started calling as news of the court ruling spread. A few apologized for believing the lies Rowan told about me. They said they did not know the full story. I appreciated their words, but part of me knew the apologies came only because the judge had ruled in my favor. Others stayed silent, unwilling to admit they had turned against me years ago when I married Lila. That silence hurt, but it also freed me. I no longer needed approval from people who never saw the real me. Rowan never called. I heard through a cousin that he blamed me for his fine and said I destroyed the family. In the past, those words would have cut deep. Now they barely scratched the surface. He had chosen resentment over responsibility for years. The court ruling did not break our bond. The truth was, our bond had shattered long before that day. The difference now was that I no longer felt guilty for standing up to him. One evening, I sat beside my mother as she drifted off to sleep. I watched her breathing slow and steady, her face calm under the soft glow of the nightlight. I thought about everything that happened. I had lost parts of my family. I had faced anger, lies, and judgment. But I had gained something stronger. I had found my voice. I had protected the one person who needed me. I had rewritten the story that others tried to twist. People talk about justice as if it is a clean victory. In reality, justice often comes with a mix of loss, relief, sadness, and strength. I did not get my brother back. I did not win back the approval of my parents. But I protected my mother in the moment she needed it most. And that was enough. It will always be enough. If you have been through something similar, or you care about protecting loved ones, subscribe to the channel and comment where you are watching from. Your support truly helps this community grow.